The Senate will come to order. Mr. Carpenter, would you please call the roll?
Senators Aguilar, Baumgardner, Cook, Coram, Court, Crowder, Donovan, Finberg, Fields, Garcia, Gardner, Guzman, Hill,
Absent.
Holbert, John, Jones, Kagan, Kafalis, Kerr, Lambert, Lundberg, Marble, Martinez-Huminick, Merrifield, Moreno, Neville, Priola, Scott,
Absent.
Smallwood, Tate, Todd, Williams, Zinzinger, President Grantham.
Excused. Please mark Senator Scott as excused. Chris, have you heard from Owen? Okay.
Mr. President,
I am here with 32 present, 1 absent, 2 excused. We do have a quorum. Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the journal, Senator Fields.
Good morning, Mr. President. I move the reading of the journal be dispensed with for Wednesday, February the 21st, 2018, and approved and corrected by the Secretary.
That's close enough. You have heard the motion. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the motion is adopted. Committee reports. Oh, before we do that, would you please add Senator Hill to the roll? Committee reports.
February 21st, 2018, the Committee on Business, Labor, and Technology has had on consideration and had a hearing on the following appointments and recommends the appointments be placed on the consent calendar and confirmed. Members of the Pinnacle Assurance Board of Directors for terms expiring January 1st, 2023, Joseph A. Hoff of Greeley, Colorado, to serve as a Farmer of Employee Reliability as insured by Pinnacle, reappointed, and William Neese Lindsay III of Denver, Colorado, to serve as an employee of employer whose liability is insured by Pinnacle, appointed. February 21st, 2018, Committee on Business, Labor, and Technology, after consideration of Mayor's Committee as follows: House Bill 1105, be referred to committee to hold the February recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 21st, 2018, Committee on Business, Labor, and Technology, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee as following: Senate Bill 139 be postponed indefinitely. February 21st, 2018, Committee on Judiciary, after consideration of Mayor's Committee as following: Senate Bill 98 be amended as follows: as so amended, be referred to committee to hold the February recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 21st, 2018, Committee on Judiciary, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee as follows: Senate Bill 166 be amended as follows: as so amended, be referred to committee to hold the February recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 21st, 2018, Committee on Judiciary, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee as following: House Bill 1010 be referred to committee to hold the February recommendation placed on the consent calendar. February 21st, 2018, Committee on Judiciary, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee as following: House Bill 1023 be amended as follows: as so amended, be referred to committee to hold the February recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 21st, 2018, Committee on Judiciary, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee as following: House Bill 1024 be referred to committee to hold the February recommendation placed on the consent calendar. February 21st, 2018, Committee on Judiciary, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee as following: House Bill 1026 be referred to committee to hold the February recommendation placed on the consent calendar. February 21st, 2018, Committee on Judiciary, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee as following: House Bill 1027 be referred to committee to hold the February recommendation placed on the consent calendar. February 21st, 2018, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee as following: House Bill 1039 be referred to committee to hold the February recommendation placed on the consent calendar. February 21st, 2018, Committee on Health and Human Services, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee as following: House Bill 1086 be referred to committee to hold the February recommendation.
Senate Services.
Correctly printed: Senate Bill 168, 169, 170, 171, 172, 173, 174, 175, 176, 177, 178, 179, 180. Correctly engrossed: Senate Bill 37, 22, 66, 99, 130, 136, 141, 151, 160, 161, 165. Correctly re-engrossed: Senate Bill 128, 144, 149. Correctly revised: House Bill 1144 and 1171. Correctly enrolled: Senate Bill 25, 54, and 67.
Sold. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege by the good senator from Arapahoe County.
Question before us is move out of order for a moment of personal privilege. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, good morning. I have a tribute today to recognize the Aurora Girl Scout Troop 60789. If you know anything about Girl Scouts, you know that it's all about girls, it's all about community.
You have to ask for a moment of personal.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. President, I would like to request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I was talking about Girl Scouts, specifically Aurora Girl Scout Troop number 60789. They're with us today here on the Senate floor. And the reason I'm acknowledging them is because they have passed an ordinance in the city of Aurora to ban smoking or vaping in cars when children are present. This is a testimony of the troop's leadership and dedication to improving public health for children of Aurora. They're all very active members who have identified this problem, and they found a way to create this or to align it with the solution. So we commend this Girl Scout troop for their success, and they've earned their Silver Award for passing this ordinance. Now, the Girl Scouts, they get a badge based on their journey, And the journey was to address breath because they were focusing on our air. And they felt the best way to address the air that we breathe is to make sure it's not contaminated when they're in cars, when someone is smoking. So I commend these young girls for their community engagement and involvement. This was requested by Senator Rhonda Fields, given on this 27th day of February 2018, and it's signed by our dear President, Kevin J. Grantham. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. And Senator Fields, it's an honor to have them in here. Members, let's welcome them.
Mr. Carpenter, please add me to the roll. Third reading of bills, consent calendar. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of all the bills on the third reading of bills consent calendar.
Senate Bill 141 by Senator Court and Representative Wilson concerning voluntary contribution designations on the Colorado Individual Income Tax Return Form. House Bill 1144 by Representative Thurlow and Senator Tate concerning certain publishing requirements for the Department of Revenue's disclosure of average taxes paid table. Senate Bill 161 by Senator Smallwood and Representatives Kraft, Tharp, and Landgraf concerning repeal of the Behavioral Health Transformation Council.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the three bills listed on the third reading of bills final passage consent calendar, consisting of Senate Bill 141, House Bill 1144, and Senate Bill 161.
Is there any further discussion on any of the bills on the third reading of bills consent calendar? The motion before the body is the adoption of all the bills on the third reading of bills consent calendar. Are there any no votes on any of the bills on the third reading of bills consent calendar? Senator Lambert.
I thought I'd like to be recorded as a no vote on 141.
Senator Lambert will be recorded as a no on 141. Senator Baumgartner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to be recorded as a no vote on Senate Bill 141.
Senator Baumgartner will be recorded as a no on 141. With 32 ayes, 2 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Bill 141 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Crowder, Senator Lundberg, Senator Aguilar, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Williams, Senator Todd, Senator Merrifield, Senator John, Senator Guzman, Senator Fields, Senator Kagan, Senator Garcia, Senator Fenberg, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Tate, Senator Kerr, Senator Donovan, with Senator Jones, with 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, House Bill 1144 is adopted. Co-sponsors: with 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Bill 161 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Crowder, Senator Kafalas, Senator Todd, Senator Martinez-Humenick, third reading of bills, final passage. Please add Senator Scott to the roll. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of Senate Bill 22.
Senate Bill 22 by Senators Tate and Aguilar and Representatives Pedersen and Kennedy concerning clinical practice measures for safer opioid prescribing.
Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, we move for the passage of Senate Bill 22 on third reading and final passage and ask for your aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 22? Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I didn't really talk much about the bill yesterday, but I thought I'd provide a few anecdotes as to why I'm so committed to this bill. There's always confusion in something like this when we're providing prescription guardrails, and that it has to do with the exposure of the patient to having more medication than necessary. And that can be true in some cases. We've heard a lot of expert testimony, and there have been a lot of studies about how addictions can take hold at an increasing probability level after a certain number of days after first exposure to the medication. But what this bill is about is really the medication that's not used. About, I don't know, the years go by, but maybe 11 years ago, I had my gallbladder removed, and I came home from surgery, had a prescription bottle of Vicodin, I believe, maybe Percocet. Had the prescription filled. Turns out I never used it. I took some Tylenol after I got home. I was on a business trip in a couple days. This past fall, I found in the back of my medicine cabinet the full bottle of, I think, 30 to 40 pills sitting in my medicine cabinet. Arapahoe County Sheriff Dave Walcher had, fractured his ankle. He came home and had his prescription filled. He took one pill, and the other 134 pills remained in his medicine cabinet. That's a latent supply of medication that just sits in our homes. My best friend growing up in southern Tennessee, he was a real estate professional, had spent most of his adult life in and out of recovery and rehab associated with drug abuse and misuse. He had gone through one marriage, had been happily married again, had been clean for some time, went out of town to an old college buddy of his, found some medication in a medicine cabinet, and he was dead in his hotel room the next day. And that's kind of what I think we're trying to deal with as best we can, is to kind of stop oversupplying into kind of hidden inventories of medication in our homes here in Colorado. Heritage Eagle Bend is a neighborhood in Arapahoe County. Arapahoe County had a surplus medication cleanup program. In 4 hours, 2 weeks ago, 4 hours on a Saturday morning, they collected 105 pounds of unused opioid medication. So members, I just urge an aye vote. This is one of those things, I think, where we have legislation here that will have an impact on what happens out there with our citizens and friends and families. Thank you for your support.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 22? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 22. Are there any no votes? Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Baumgartner, Senator Hill, Senator Neville, Senator Cook, Senator Marble. With 29 ayes, 6 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 22 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Zenzinger, Senator Guzman, Senator Jones, Senator Fields, Senator Kafalis, Senator Priola, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Gardner, Senator Kerr, Senator Court, Senator Donovan, Senator Kagan, Senator Moreno, Senator Williams, Senator Todd, Senator Fenberg, Senator Merrifield, Senator John, Senator Crowder. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of Senate Bill 7.
Senate Bill 007 by Senators Tate and Guzman, Representatives Duran and Becker J, concerning the Colorado Affordable Housing Tax Credit and in connection therewith renaming the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit the Colorado Affordable Housing Tax Credit and extending the period during which the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority may allocate affordable housing tax credits.
Senator Guzman.
Thank you, Mr. President. We move Senate Bill 7 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 7? Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I similarly was sparse in comments yesterday, but I just want to explain, at least to my colleagues, why I like this approach as well. You know, we have a lot of tax credit bills fly through here, and a lot of times they're pretty straightforward. This is a much kind of different tax credit. It has to do with CHAFA, how they administer initiatives out there in our real estate market. And the best way to understand how this tax credit is working with CHAFA and real estate development is to kind of really look at our utility sector, where we generate electrons. And this, pick for example, a coal-producing facility. This works where CHAFA is kind of like the PUC, and the developer is like a generation facility, and the tax credits go in for the developer or the generator to basically lower the cost of electrons being delivered, in this case, rental housing being delivered, in an environment that's highly regulated in terms of return on capital requirements, like the PUC does for our utilities. So I just want to be clear how that works. The tax credit functions not as just kind of surplus money being thrown around. It doesn't go into free ridership problems in terms of these developments. It goes right to creating an environment where there's a certain return on capital for these developments, and we have a nominal amount of additional affordable housing being created in the metro area. Urge and I vote. Thank you.
Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under Rule 17C, I asked to be excused from voting on this bill. Years ago, when CHAFA was established in statute, and CHAFA is not a state agency, it was decided that a legislator would be a liaison representative on the CHAFA board, and currently, that is me. So under Rule 17C, I have no personal financial interest, but I think it's best that I disclose that and recuse myself from voting on the bill.
The Majority Leader will be a 17C. Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, we understand that we have an issue with housing prices in the state of Colorado. Part of that is it's actually it's from our own success that we've had. We also have some of the lowest unemployment rates in the state of Colorado. We have a very successful economy going, and of course we have a lot of people moving here. I'm going to be respectful no on this bill for two reasons. Number one, the focus of this program originally was for low-income housing. Now the focus is changing based upon this bill, and I do believe that words have meanings. Now it includes workforce housing, affordable housing. Now that, when we start talking about what the scope of affordable housing could be, I want you to think about that. It could be kind of anything and everything. And one of the things that I like to do is ask people about deliverables. We've had this program in place for a number of years. Do we have more affordable housing or do we have less affordable housing? Well, we have less affordable housing. Now, that's not really the fault, per se, of the program itself. My point is, though, that the economy is the economy and markets are markets. And when we take a look at this and we identify, do we really believe that government can provide affordable housing, in the words of one of the proponents, who said, everyone deserves a safe and affordable place. Do we think that government can do that with an affordable housing program, or do we think that possibly government might be choosing winners and losers in how it uses these tax credits? So I'll be a respectful no on this bill.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 7? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 7. Are there any no votes? Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Hill, Senator Cook, Senator Marble, Senator Neville, Senator Lundberg, Senator Lambert, Senator Smallwood. With 25 ayes, 9 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, and 117C, Senate Bill 7 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Kafalas, Senator Moreno, Senator Kagan, Senator Donovan, Senator Cort, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Garcia, Senator Fenberg, Senator Merrifield, Senator Todd, Senator Williams, Senator Aguilar, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Kerr. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of House Bill 1171.
House Bill 1171 by Representative Hamner and Senator Lundberg concerning adjustments in the amount of total program funding for the public schools for the 2017-18 budget year and in connection therewith making and reducing an appropriation.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1171 and ask for its favorable adoption.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1171? Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to take a moment to once again urge the body to reject this bill based purely on selfish reasons. Selfish because I'm trying to protect my members of my Senate district and school districts within my Senate district. For example, Harrison School District that will lose $94,853. School District 11, $241,960. Manitou Springs that will not see $11,586. Widefield District that will not see $69,926. And Fountain District that will not see $60,484. It so happens that these 5 districts are among the most challenged financially in the state, and they could use this money. That's a total of $479,000 that will not be in their coffers for use in the upcoming year. I misspoke yesterday. I said we have a negative factor of $750 million, and it's actually $828 million. And every little bit helps, especially if you're an educator, trying to stretch your dollars as far as you can. So I would urge the body to reject this amendment and do all that we can to start to draw down the negative factor and support our local school districts. Thank you.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I can't quite believe that I'm about to vote no on a bill that is designed and says that it's going to provide supplemental resources to our K-12 schools. But I am going to do that. And let me explain why. The title of this bill says concerning adjustments in the amount of total program funding for public schools for the 2017-2018 budget year. So it says concerning adjustments. So adjustments mean moving it up, moving it down, but the funding for public schools in the 2017-2018 year. Now, as this bill came over from the House, it had adjustments in it. And the various adjustments meant that $7 million more were going to go to our K-12 schools. That's an adjustment when in the 2017-2018 budget year. That's an adjustment. It changed the amount of funding. It increased the amount of funding, which I think is very important because when I look back over my years here in this Senate, listening to the speeches at this well, talking about how important schools are, talking about how important fully funding our schools, and that we have this opportunity. We have this opportunity to make an adjustment and give our schools just a little bit more. We all know that $7 million spread across the whole state, spread across all 800,000 students isn't going to be a huge, huge amount, but it will make a difference. I read some numbers yesterday of various districts and how much money that with the amendment that was done in the Senate, which we fought against yesterday, that amendment is going to take money that otherwise would be going to your school districts. And I read some of those districts and some of those numbers. I want to read a different number from a different district today. And I know here on our Gifted and Talent today, many of us have shadows. Many of us have folks who are learning about the process, and they're taking the day off school in their own districts, in their school districts, in your Senate district, to be here with us today. So my shadow is from Frisco, Summit County, Summit County School District. And in Frisco, in Summit County, each student, because of the adjustments made, because of the amendments made here in the Senate, from when this bill came to the Senate, each student is going to get $8.41 less than they would otherwise. And again, $8, come on, what's the big deal, $8? Well, there is a student sitting in this chamber right now that is going to get $8 less in this budget year because of the amendments that were passed in this chamber that we did not have to do. Again, I want to point out, because no one has come here and said, why did we do this? What is the point of not spending that $7 million on our school kids this year? Title of the bill: Concerning adjustments in the amount of total program funding for public schools for the 2017-2018 budget year. So if we don't spend that $7 million on our kids now in this budget year, where's that $7 million going? What is more important than the kids that are sitting in this chamber with us right now and their school year this year? Where is that $7 million going?
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I too urge a no vote on House Bill 1171. The title and the topic is School Finance Mid-Year Adjustment to Funding. And I agree with my colleague. We cannot sacrifice our students with a cut. $7 million is far too much. And I'd like to kind of recap how this is going to impact my school districts, which is Arapahoe County, in Inglewood. Their cut is going to be $8.46. Arapahoe County in Sheridan, $9.45. Arapahoe County, Cherry Creek School District, $8.10. Arapahoe County, Littleton, $7.83. Deer Trail, which is the rural eastern border of my district, is going to experience a cut at $14.63. That's one of the highest if you look at this matrix. And then Aurora, Arapahoe County, they will experience an $8.47 per pupil cut. Byers, another rural district, will receive a reduction in their per pupil funding at the point of $7.89. When I was elected, we were in the middle of negative factor. So when I think about cutting $7 million, when we already are operating at a deficit in so many of our schools districts by the tune of $838 million, we can't afford an adjustment cut in our schools of $7 million. So, member, I urge you to vote no on this House Bill 1171. We can't sacrifice our kids, and they deserve the funding to prepare them to take their places in our future tomorrow. A $7 million cut does not help them with the resources that they need, the teachers that we need to hire, etc. Vote no on House Bill 1171.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, as you're well aware, we covered these particulars yesterday in second reading rather extensively, but I believe it's important that I review some of that because we have many people who are here in the chamber who weren't here yesterday, students. It's been pointed out, and of course, this does impact schools, and I believe they need to know the facts, and I believe many of the facts have been presented in a bit of a mixed characterization as to what we are doing with House Bill 1171. House Bill 1171, Mr. President, as you well know, is a supplemental bill. It's one of a package of bills that the Joint Budget Committee prepares about this time to true up the budget that went into effect on July 1st of 2017 to true up the budget to the realities of what is actually being spent. 1171 has to do with truing up the budget for education, for public schools. And as I know you know, Mr. President, last year we passed the School Finance Act. And the School Finance Act specifies how much support will be given to the public schools in terms of backfilling to ensure that full funding is available to all schools according to the amounts that we agreed upon, and that we did last year. And it works this way. It's established on a per pupil basis. So we established that amount that would be guaranteed for each public school in that School Finance Act. And then, in order to arrive upon a total appropriation amount for the legislation, that was multiplied times the estimated number of students that we would see in this school year. Well, the school census came down a little bit less than what was expected. Now, it didn't come down. It actually grew from the previous year, but it didn't grow as fast as we had expected. Now, for the supplemental bill, the question is, what should the total appropriation look like? Well, in order to be consistent with what the School Finance Act specified, it needs to be reduced by about $7 million, the total appropriation. That doesn't cut any of the per pupil funding. That holds the line on exactly what was agreed upon by this legislature last year. So House Bill 1171 simply holds the line on the funding that was agreed upon. Now, the Joint Budget Committee, in submitting the bill, and this year it started as a House bill, set that amount and sent it over to the House. Well, the House decided that they would try to add the additional $7 million that the total appropriation amount was, which amounts to an increase in funding. So any reference to a cut in funding is just not accurate at all. And one of the statements that was made by those who are in opposition to this bill is, if we don't spend the $7 million here, what then? Well, that probably is the real point of the whole piece. Is first, the supplemental is not adding supplemental amounts. It's simply truing up the budget to the realities of in this case, the student population. But the $7 million has a lot of directions it could go ultimately, because this is taking an additional $7 million out of the budget And, Mr. President, I won't, but I could relate multiple needs for for those who are severely disabled in our state, or for those who have needs in other areas where that $7 million could go. But if we spend it here and now, we simply take out that much more that could be spent elsewhere. House Bill 1171, in its current language, does precisely what we agreed to do last year in the School Finance Act. It does not cut a dime from any school whatsoever. In the House, they wanted to increase that number, but that's not what a supplemental is for. That's the argument we should have when the School Finance Act comes up again for consideration for the next school year. Mr. President, I do hope that the Senate will choose to adopt House Bill 1171. If not, it really throws the supplemental system in a bit of a limbo because we have a School Finance Act that specifies one number, and we have the reality that's a different number, and supplementals are to simply true those things up. Please, Mr. President, thank you for your time, your patience on this. I hope it helps explain the reality of what a supplemental is and what House Bill 1171 is intended to do.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1171? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1171. Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I sat there debating whether to come down and speak or not, but when I heard the word reality, I couldn't pass it up. Reality is that our students are our future. Our students are the greatest investment we can make today for tomorrow. So when we look at what the per pupil funding is, that looks like it's factual, it's kind of hardcore facts, black and white, these are the needs. I don't know how many of you listened to the town hall last night on TV, but listening to our youth speak and talk about what the needs are before our students and our youth today is not the same as it was when most of us sitting in this chamber were in school. We are continually saying we need greater security, we need greater personal one-on-one relationships, be it with counseling, with other support services and staff. Those are monies that are not built into the budget as we have it right now. Those are the unexpected. Those are the things that we need to plan for, and we need to make sure we have that reserve sitting there waiting for the different needs and the different causes that our schools will be called upon to do. Each and every one of us contemplates how to spend the money that the taxpayers provide for government needs for our state. When we look at the needs of our children today and the cost of educating a child, it is not just the per pupil funding that we see, it is much more. It is over and beyond. Again, this bill, we said this yesterday, came out of the House in a bipartisan manner, 53-12. It went through appropriations, 10-3. It wasn't until it came to the Senate that it became partisan. I urge us to look at this holistically. I urge us to look at this in a sense that we need to make sure that that money that has been set aside for education is used as a surplus or is used as a security and in good faith, that when our schools are called upon, do more on less, that we are operating in good faith. It saddens me to vote no on an education bill. It saddens me greatly. because I do know and I do understand the impact that dollars make as an investment in our education today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I sat at second reading yesterday and wondered if I should come down and speak, and resisted. I sat here this morning ready to vote, wondered if I should come and speak, and I thank my colleague from Berthoud for his very rational and objective explanation for why this supplemental is the appropriate thing to do. And were the bench and the gallery not full this morning, I probably would have stayed in my seat. But having heard my colleagues on this side talk about the importance of K-12 education and how important it is, it inspired me to come down and speak this morning. So the word for this morning, for those of you on the bench and in the gallery that are special guests of ours, and I really am excited about you being here. The word for this morning is demagoguery. Look it up. Because what this supplemental is about is a tough budget choice that we make, and we make them, our Joint Budget Committee and this General Assembly makes them every year, every month, every day. There is not a cut to any school's budget here. Members, how many of you understand the School Finance Act? I want the gallery to notice how few hands actually went up. It is complex. And how the money reaches your schools itself is somewhat complex. So the reality of this bill is that it is what people refer to as a true-up, because school funding is done primarily on a per-pupil basis, and projections of numbers of students in each school and each district every year on the 1st of July doesn't know how many of you there will be sitting in the seats on the 1st of October. So they make projections, and wise school financial officers wisely make those projections very conservatively based on those per pupil numbers. And we here in the General Assembly have a global number based upon those projections. Well, guess what? This year, there were fewer than we projected. And for that reason, the true-up of our own supplemental budget, this bill, said there weren't as many as we projected, and so on a per-pupil basis, every school is going to get the same amount of money for each of you sitting here this morning, and each of your friends and colleagues sitting back in a seat at your school are going to get the same amount of money that was budgeted last year by the General Assembly. There is not a cut to your budget in that sense. So the $8 and some, or the $14 and some that my colleague from Aurora talked about is not a cut for any individual student, but an adjustment of the budget number based upon the fact that there weren't as many students. Now, one could say, well, but it's really good. We ought to give that money over. Well, as my colleague from Berthoud said, There are dozens and hundreds and probably thousands of needs. Let me say that to my colleagues, those on the bench in the gallery, and the people of Colorado. And those needs are people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, people who drive to work in the morning and take you to school, Medicaid, parks, the environment, dozens and dozens of things that all of us would agree are important things. And so to come to the well and say, well, you just don't, to imply that you just don't care enough about school children, you just don't care enough about K-12, well, we make those choices. So the lesson here today for you visiting the General Assembly is this is about difficult choices, limited revenue, and allocating them based upon our best judgment of how we can and should spend the money. This bill represents the Joint Budget Committee's, and I hope this General Assembly's, best judgment of a difficult decision, and one is made every day. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1171? Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate my second and last time here at the microphone on this bill today. Since the word demagogue is now a word that we can throw out here at the well, my guess is that the term grandstanding will be allowed as well. So thank you for that permission, Mr. President. One thing about our guests on the benches and in the gallery today, our gifted and talented guests today, who each and every one of them impacted by the school finance formula that we're discussing here. Again, gifted and talented. My experience with these young people over the years is they don't need to be told what lesson that they are learning on any particular day. I think most of them can figure out the lessons on their own. And but it was pointed out that we need facts here. We need to be talking about facts and not the I forget the exact terms that were used, but implying that perhaps some of the folks who have talked here today were not completely using the facts. The fact is that when House Bill 1171 came from the House to the Senate, it had an additional $7 million that would go to every single public school student in this state. That is a fact. You can stir it up, you can bring in other supposed facts, but that is a fact that this bill, as it came from the House, had an additional $7 million going to our students, who, by the way, since we haven't talked about the budget stabilization factor, do your own acronym there. With the negative factor at $828 million, a small, tiny bite at that apple of $7 million is exactly where I want this money to go. You were told that there are lots of different important programs that this $7 million could go to. Well, which one is it? If we pass this bill the way it is right now, we don't know where that $7 million is going to go. If we were able to take this bill back to how it came from the House, we knew exactly where that $7 million was going. It was going to the kids sitting in this room. But with the amendment, the change, the cut, the amendment in the Appropriations Committee cut $7 million from going to our schools, where we knew where it would go. There's 6 names on this bill. At the top of this bill, the House and Senate sponsors and the co-sponsors. Those 6 people sit on our Joint Budget Committee. We've elected them here in this body. Those 3 people, their names in the House, they're appointed by their leadership. Those 6 people get to decide what to do with that $7 million. This is our chance. This bill is our vehicle for all of us, all 35 of us, to have a say as to where that $7 million would go. But with the cut, with the amendment that cut that $7 million, we are letting those 6 people decide what to do with that money. So, Mr. President, I apologize for any demagoguery or any grandstanding that has happened here today. But I think the kids in this room, the kids back in our districts, the kids in their classrooms, I think they're worth having a discussion about where we want this money to go and not just 6 people.
Your apology is accepted. Any other discussion on House Bill 1171? Senator Lambert.
For everybody in the gallery that is here visiting from our school systems, 1171 is a bill and is modifying a current budget. This is the current budget that it modifies. You can see it's the appropriations report for fiscal year 17-18, and we're in that year right now. The interesting thing is that despite the denigration of the Joint Budget Committee that represents you, for the last 2 days, you've been saying we've been cutting education. I'll have you know, and here are the facts, for the last several years, the Joint Budget Committee has provided more money for K-12 education than even the governor or the department has asked for. That is not a cut. And I have the facts to prove it. What was being said here is that somehow there's a black hole across the street for the Budget Committee that we're not paying attention. Well, that's wrong. We have a sense of integrity on the committee that I represent. And members of other committees should respect that. And if you want to have a real fist fight on this floor, get rid of the Joint Budget Committee. And the Education Committee can argue against the Transportation Committee, against the Agriculture Committee, against Health Care, because we set our estimates based upon the best facts that we have from the department, from our school systems, and we have to do that based upon an estimate. The facts are that this bill, and we get a lot of detailed information about how these bills are put together. And here's a little paragraph about how these are calculated. It's called background. At the time that the long bill appropriation for school finance is established, many data are unknown. They're not known. With a great deal of integrity and the cooperation from the department and from the governor's office, we make the best calculations that we can. And we put it in a state budget that grows every year, an education department that grows every year. Now it's over $5.5 billion just for the state share of education. And yet we're being told that we're cutting because our calculation was incorrect. Now I'll continue. The initial appropriation is based on forecast of funded pupil counts, the number of at-risk students, and property tax revenue. Well, I'll tell you, every single year those numbers change. Every single year, the number of Medicaid recipients that we budget by an estimate changes at the end of the year. And we have to go back and cover those costs. If the costs go up, we have another bill that increases the budget for Medicaid. We have to true up those numbers for behavioral health. And members, every bit of these facts are available to you. They've been handed out on your desk. There's total transparency. And I'm very proud of the increase of transparency we've had between our Joint Budget Committee members, all of us, and the body we represent. There is no black box here. The School Finance Act, which set down the rules, which were carried by our members last year, established those rules. And for all of you students here, this is the 22nd of February, you may remember where you were on October 1st this year. In your classrooms, because all your teachers said, you got to come back on October 1st because we're doing a student head count. Well, that student head count was conducted, and our estimates were wrong. The funded pupil count went down, and interestingly, the at-risk pupil count went down by 6,993. Those are based upon estimates. We budgeted based upon estimates, and I'm sorry, estimates are sometimes wrong. We couldn't tell back last May how many people would be sitting in the classroom on October 1st. And it's only fair part of our process that all the people that spend their time making these estimates be respected because we have to do it year after year. And in the past, we've come back and there were slightly more students and more at-risk students than previous estimates. This year, there weren't. It's a matter of the integrity of our process is to come back, make the best estimates we can, and when they are not true, then as the senator from Berthoud said, we do a true-up. For 17-18, the funded pupil count decreased by 918. And it says, in addition, the actual property, local property tax was higher. We can't estimate the local property taxes either. But when school districts get more money, and they did, then we have to have integrity in our process to be thinking about all of those other estimates that we made throughout the state. But today we're talking about one bill where it's okay to ignore the actual numbers, and that's only for the Department of Education. And members, some of you others that are thinking about how do I get funding for transportation? How do I get funding for behavioral health services? How do I get funding for anything else, any of the committee's local affairs? How do we get that money? Well, as the senator said, we have to make some hard decisions, but I'm just standing up today for the hard work of the members of the committee that I serve on, the Joint Budget Committee, because we have gone out of our way to increase school funding over the last several years. I think it's been at least 5 years where we have provided, on a bipartisan basis, tens of millions of dollars every year more than what the department and the governor even asked for. And I hope, members, you appreciate the hard work of my colleagues on my committee instead of accusing us of cuts, which is not factual.
Senator Merrifield, you were next.
Thank you, Mr. President. Demagoguery this is from vocabulary.com, is an appeal to people that plays on their emotions and prejudices rather than on their rational side. Demagoguery is a manipulative approach, often associated with dictators and sleazy politicians, that appeals to the worst nature of people. Frankly, I have not seen any demagoguery on either side of the aisle today. I've seen some passionate arguments on issues that we're very concerned about. To my good colleague from El Paso County, who's on the JBC, I have not used the word cuts. Frankly, I don't remember anyone saying there's a cut to education. I'm saying my memory. Maybe mine isn't quite as astute as yours. We're talking about $7 million that should be going to education because that's from whence it came. Funding that would have gone to education. If we are lucky enough to have $7 million extra dollars, and we have an $828 million negative fund, we should be making every effort we can to draw down that negative factor. The funds should be going to education. They were going to education when they arrived here at the Senate. We're just saying, let's continue to do what's right for education, as the House has stated. Take $7 million that was designated for education, that was created through funds that go to education, and maintain it in education. In reality, this bill is an opportunity to invest an additional $7 million. I did not say cuts. $7 million additional to drawing down the negative factor. So once again, think about that before you vote on this bill.
Senator John.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, as everybody in the room knows, I don't like coming down here at all anyway, so you don't see me down here often. But when I say piling on an issue that, I'm sorry, I think that we do have to look at the facts, and I have to tell you, I think it was eloquently spoken by my good colleague, friend from Colorado Springs. I do respect the work that this Joint Budget Committee does. The Democrat that sits on that committee from this chamber, the Republicans that sit on that committee from this chamber, I do have a lot of respect for that. And I will tell you, they would not cut the money from education. So I see this as kind of a precedent. So is this how we're going to? I have a lot of things I would like, but I have to go through the process. I have to agree that there are a lot of needs out there, and maybe I would support another $7 million going into education, but we need to go through the right process. And that means we all have to get in line and figure out what is really, really important to us. And I will tell you, from the 16 years I've been in this building, education, to all of our friends in the gallery and in the chamber, education has always been a priority, not just for one side over here or one side over here. So when I see piling on, that there's just one side that does not understand it, that they want to cut education, yeah, I have to speak up. There's a whole lot of things I would like to see in the budget, but I'll wait till that budget comes over to our side. This was a Joint Budget Committee bill. And thank you, Senator Gardner, I know I'm not supposed to say that, from Colorado Springs, and my good friend from Berthoud. You laid it out very well. So I will therefore be supporting this bill, and I look forward to the discussion, and I look forward to the process when we can all fight together for more money for education and paying down the negative factor. I get that. But that's not where this belongs. Thank you.
Senator Holbert, Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think it's worth noting the difference, and this more for the students who are here because members know this. What you're seeing here today doesn't often or maybe never takes place in our nation's capital, in Congress. This body operates under two constitutions, one the U.S. Constitution and the other the Colorado State Constitution. And there's something in our Constitution here in Colorado that the federal government does not have. They are not constrained by. We have in our state constitution a requirement to pass a budget every year during this 120-day session, which includes weekends and holidays and ends up to about 85 days a year. We have to pass a budget, and that budget must be balanced. Your state government, your state legislature does not have the authority to spend money that we do not have. The federal government, every year, I think that I've been alive, has done something that we can't do, and that's called deficit spending. Spend more money than it has. And the deficit, the difference between what it spends and what it has, it borrows. And we, you, are all responsible for paying that back. But our state government is not allowed to do that. Why are we not allowed to do that? Because the people of Colorado voted to amend our state constitution to take away that option, to put the legislature under control of the people of Colorado to say, no, you must pass a budget and it must be balanced. And you've heard reference to the Joint Budget Committee. To the members of the committee, thank you. Thank you for your time and effort. And because we have a split legislature right now, that 6-member committee has 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats. 3 from the Senate, 3 from the House. Here in the Senate, we have 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat, the opposite in the House, 2 Democrats and 1 Republican. And they have to agree, at least 4 of those 6 have to agree to put something in the budget, to move forward. And that's hard. That's hard, but they do it. And the last thing I want to mention, just so you know, the number 1 priority in that balanced budget, when we take the tax dollars that the people of Colorado pay into the general fund, that's the account that we call the collection point of all the state tax revenue that we get to allocate. The number 1 item, the highest amount that we put into any one item is K through 12 education. And the total funding this year, if I remember correctly, is $5,595 million. $5,595 million. That's $5,595 million, almost $5.6 billion. And this bill is recognizing, as the members of the Joint Budget Committee have accurately explained, and the good senator from El Paso County, this bill looks back to the budget that the Joint Budget Committee brought us last year, and they projected how many dollars will we have, how many kids will we have in our K through 12 program. And as it turns out, we have fewer students than we thought, than we projected. And the words true up, correction have been used, and that's what this bill seeks to do. So I'm truly grateful for my friend. I want to make sure I get the Wheat Ridge, Senator. My good friend from Wheat Ridge. I think of just Jefferson County, but I think she prefers the municipality, Wheat Ridge. She accurately pointed out, yes, there's been a lot of discussion, but this is math. This isn't a negative view of K through 12. K through 12 is the number 1 priority for everyone in this chamber, for everyone in both chambers. The budget that we passed last year, based on our Constitution, puts K through 12 first, and this true-up, this correction, is really something that we have to do because of the state constitution, because it's the right thing to do, because we have bipartisan representation on the joint budget committee and equal representation between the two chambers. I truly ask for your aye vote and thank you for your patience as we work through this important debate on House Bill 1171.
Senator Zinzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Like my colleague from Wheat Ridge, I really don't enjoy coming down here and speaking very often, but I felt it was really important for a couple of reasons to do so, because I do sit on the interim committee that's looking at how we finance our schools, our funding formula, and I just want to point out a couple of things. If we're going to be truly honest about this conversation about truing up our funding formula, then we need to at least acknowledge the existence of the negative factor, the $828 million BS factor, because the way that our funding formula works is that we determine what the district per pupil funding will be. So we calculate our total funding that's required from each district. Then we determine what the local share is going to be. Then we take our amount as the state and we subtract out what the local share is, and then that's the obligation of the state. It's a very complicated formula that has a lot of more detail and elements to it than that. But that amount, at the end of the day, is what our funding formula says that we should be providing to schools to fund each student in the state. And then after we do that calculation, we apply the negative factor. We take away money after the calculation. So the calculation is based on the number of students. The calculation is based on the local share from the property values, from the properties that we collect, the taxes that we collect. And then after the funding formula is done up and we have a total amount, that's the amount that truly should be going to our schools. That's the amount. Then we apply the negative factor and take it away. So I don't object to the concept of truing up, because truing up based on the formula makes sense. But if we're going to do that, then we need to be using the actual amount that our funding formula says we should be funding schools by before the negative factor is applied. So in this instance, I would say that I think we have an opportunity here to actually apply that toward the negative factor and actually true up our formula the way that we should in order to best meet what our funding formula says we should do.
Senator Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, members, I've been in the General Assembly for 9 years now, and I have found myself with great respect for the work of the joint budget committees over the years. Tremendous work. They do some of the heaviest lifting that is required with regard to sorting out the amounts that they recommend we should. And in some cases, they bring proposed legislation. They run bills. They always run some that dictate how they recommend and propose we should dispose of the tax dollars that come into the state. They do great work. They do it diligently and they do it well. But they do not decide how much we spend on what. They make recommendations, they do analysis, they jointly sponsor bills, and all those things are recommendations or proposals that they make in their wisdom to the General Assembly as a whole. And it is the duty and the responsibility and the obligation of the General Assembly to say yea or nay on those recommendations. Now, we are faced today with a policy choice. No one is suggesting, or I am not suggesting that there is any demagoguery or any grandstanding involved in here. We face a policy choice. A little more per pupil funding is available than we expected. A little more per pupil funding is available than we predicted. And so we have to make a policy choice, because that slight increase in per pupil funding is possible, and it is more than was originally planned, because the number of pupils is less than was predicted, because the local share is higher than predicted. What do we do as a policy choice? Do we say, okay, let's conform what we spend to what has actually occurred? Or do we take that unexpected revenue and put it into our schools? That is a legitimate policy choice. We are not bound by what the Joint Budget Committee did. They would not even claim that we are bound by it. It is our responsibility to decide what to do with this very small, but for some districts, very significant amount of money that is now available to us. Policy choice. Do we keep that money directed towards our schools? Or do we put it into the general fund and then discuss and debate who gets that money? I urge you members to make the policy choice that the extra money that we were not expecting to go onto the per pupil funding levels go to the pupils of Colorado schools. I know some of you would like to take that money and consider putting it elsewhere. That is a legitimate question. We are not bound by what the Joint Budget Committee has so expertly done. It is our responsibility to make our own decision. And that is the policy choice that faces us today. I urge us to make the policy choice that this money will go to per pupil funding.
Any other discussion? Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. In case you're new to this chamber, this is called the Supplemental Package Summary. You should read it sometime. There's also a Colorado Constitution that has a Taxpayer Bill of Rights that obligates us to true up our budget, including the one that we're sitting in, including last year's, and pass a budget upcoming that is balanced to the best that we can estimate based on projected revenues. We're in the middle of this fiscal year, and every year we come here and pass supplemental bills to true up to our current situation within the existing budget year, within our current reality. It's already been stated multiple times what that reality is. Let's add another reality to this little scenario here. We have a supplemental package that we've already passed most of them through this chamber, and they're already on the way back to the governor. We ask, well, we have this money here. It was in the House bill when it came over, and then we took it out. Well, it wasn't in the JBC bill when it came over, and that was a bipartisan effort. We simply ignore that because that was, in their estimation, part of the larger package, the best way to get to truing up our current 17-18 budget. We made a lot of adjustments across the board in different departments. Where is that $7 million going to go? Well, why don't you look back at the bills that you already passed through here on the supplementals? That's where it went. That's where it's going. These are supplementals. This is truing up adjustments to the entire budget, whether it's healthcare policy and financing, whether it's human services, whether it's judicial, whether it's corrections, whether it's revenue. All of these had corrections built into the supplementals, increases. That is where these changes go. It's to the other departments. These are things that we've already voted on. And now we're being asked to change the rules in midstream when we actually have the ability to do what you want to do coming up. The School Finance Act and the budget. This is where we always have this debate, and we're turning it into something else, and we're trying to fix this current year's budget. We've already passed those other bills where this money is spent. This is the fact. These are the realities of the building that we work in. This is what we do every year, and now we're changing that game for what purpose? For what purpose? We want to create an issue here? I don't know. I certainly won't use such words such as, I don't know, grandstanding. Folks, this is a whole lot more simple than what we're making it. We are trying to true up a current budget. The JBC, the years that I was over there, the current years, we, as the senator from Colorado Springs mentioned, took big bites out of the negative factor, the budget stabilization factor. More than the governor asked for, more than the department asked for. We did that. The JBC did that. The 100 members of this body, the 35 here and the 65 in the other chamber, we did that. We did that through the School Finance Act, and we did that through the budget. And those very same years, when we had issues with true-ups in the current year budget, we took care of those. We took care of those across many departments. I don't remember having this debate over the large increases in HICPUF that came through on the supplementals or in human services. But that is where this money is going. We can true this up, and then we can move on to the true debates that we need to have over how much we're going to take from other departments to put into the negative factor. Those are debates that we get to have. And that's when we will have them, when we discuss the School Finance Act and when we talk about the 18-19 budget. Let's just vote yes on this, and let's move on.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of Senate or House Bill 1171. Are there any no votes? Senator Merrifield, Senator Todd, Senator Williams, Senator Aguilar, Senator Kagan, Senator Court, Senator Kerr, Senator Fenberg, Minority Leader Guzman, Senator Garcia, Senator Krafales, Senator Fields, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Jones, Senator Donovan, With 20 ayes, 15 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1171 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Baumgardner, Senator Gardner, Senator Crowder, Senator Cook,
He's out, the President. Senator Tate. Majority Leader Holbert. Mr. Carpenter, please add Senator Sonnenberg as a co-sponsor. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of Senate Bill 66.
Senate Bill 66 by Senators Sonnenberg and Garcia and Representatives Arndt and Wisk concerning an extension of the operation of the State Lottery Division beyond July 1st, 2024.
Senator Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. President. The good senator from Sterling and I move Senate Bill 66 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 66? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 66. Are there any no votes? Senator Lambert, Senator Lundberg, Majority Leader Holbert, Senator Marble, Senator Smallwood. No votes on 66. With 30 ayes, 5 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 66 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator John, Senator Crowder, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Jones, Senator Moreno, Senator Aguilar, Senator Merrifield, Senator Kerr, Senator Court. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of Senate Bill 165.
Senate Bill 165 by Senators Neville and Todd and Representative Windsor and Singh concerning requirements for public administrators.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. We move Senate Bill 165 and ask for a favorable vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 165. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 165 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to Senate Bill 136. Please add Senator Marble as a co-sponsor on 165. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of the Senate Bill. We can be here all day. That's fine. Please add Senator Tate as a co-sponsor on 165. Any others? Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of 136.
Senate Bill 136 by Senator Neville and Representative Kraft, Tharp, and Size concerning fees for advising clients about the selection of an individual health benefit plan.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 136 on third and final reading and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 136. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 136 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Kafales, Senator Smallwood, Senator Aguilar, Senator Merrifield, Senator John, Senator Todd, Senator Guzman, Senator Cook, Majority Leader Holbert, Senator Marble, Senator Scott, Senator Tate, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Garcia. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of the Senate Bill 130.
Senate Bill 130 by Senator Smallwood and Representative McKean concerning the repeal of the requirement that the health insurance carriers report average reimbursement rates for inpatient care to the Division of Insurance.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 130 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 130. Are there any no votes? Senator Zenzinger, Senator Jones, Senator Merrifield, Senator Kagan. With 32 ayes, 31 ayes, 4 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 130 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Majority Leader Holbert, Senator Tate, Senator Scott, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Lambert, Senator Hill, Senator Neville, please add the President. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of Senate Bill 160.
Senate Bill 160 by Senator Lambert and Representative Hamner concerning the authority to operate certain teacher development programs in connection therewith, establishing alternative licensure programs and induction programs.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 160.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 160. Are there any no votes? Senator Jones, Senator Merrifield. With 33 ayes, 2 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 160 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Zenzinger, Senator Moreno, Senator Hill, Senator Crowder, Senator Neville, Senator Scott, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Tate, Senator Marble, Senator Cook, Senator John, Senator Todd, Senator Williams, Senator Kafalas, Senator Smallwood. Co-sponsors on 160: Senator Gardner, Senator Priola, Senator Lundberg. Please add the President. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of Senate Bill 151.
Senate Bill 151 by Senators Fields and Priola and Representatives Buckner and Wilson concerning Department of Education research to develop bullying prevention policies.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 151 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 151. Are there any no votes? Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Neville, Senator Cook, Senator Marble, Senator Lundberg, Senator Lambert. No votes on 151. With 28 ayes, 7 noes. Sorry. 0 absent, 0 excused. Senate Bill 151 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Merrifield, Senator Todd, Senator Williams, Senator Aguilar, Senator Moreno, Senator Donovan, Senator Court, Senator Fenberg, Senator Garcia, Senator Kafalas, Senator Kagan, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Kerr, Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to Senate Bill 99.
Senate Bill 99 by Senators Merrifield and Priola and Representatives Pedersen and Wilson concerning the alignment of early childhood quality improvement programs with the Colorado Shines Quality Rating and Improvement System.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 99 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is adoption of Senate Bill 99. Are there any no votes? Senator Hill, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Lundberg, Senator Lambert, Senator Marble, Senator Cook, Senator Tate. With 27 ayes, 8 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 99 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Guzman, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Donovan, Senator Fenberg, Senator Garcia, Senator Court, Senator Jones. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of Senate Bill 3.
Senate Bill 3 by Senators Scott and Representatives Hansen and Becker J concerning the Colorado Energy Office.
Senator Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 3 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 3. Are there any no votes? Senator Jones. With 34 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 3 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Lambert, Majority Leader Holbert, Senator Marble, Senator Cook, Senator John, Senator Hill, Senator Crowder, Senator Coram, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Neville, Senator Gardner, Senator Tate, Senator Lundberg, Senator Priola, Senator Todd. Would you like to be a co-sponsor on Senate Bill 3?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Please add the president. Now, Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thought you had paused, so I was ready to. Mr. President, I'd like to request to be listed as a co-sponsor on Senate Bill 99, please.
Please add Senator Todd as a co-sponsor on Senate Bill 99. Senator Martinez-Humanic.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request to be added as a co-sponsor for Senate Bill 165.
Please add the senator to 165 as a co-sponsor. General order, second reading of bills. Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills.
Motion for the body is for the Senate to resolve itself in Committee of the Whole for consideration of the general order, second reading of bills calendar. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of the general order, second reading of bills calendar. Senator Smallwood will take the chair.
Committee will come to order. The court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 125?
Senate Bill 125 by Senators Gardner and Kagan concerning fiduciary responsibilities of title insurance entities to protect funds held in conjunction with real estate closing settlement services.
Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we lay over Senate Bill 125 until Friday, February 23rd.
Motion for the body is to lay over Senate Bill 125 until February 23rd. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 125 will lay over. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 26?
Senate Bill 26 by Senator Kagan concerning measures to make sex offender registration more effective.
Senator Kagan.
Mr. Chairman, I move Senate Bill 26 and the Judiciary Committee report.
To the committee report, Senator Kagan.
Members, the Judiciary Committee report to Senate Bill 26 made some changes, the most significant of which is that under the introduced version of the bill, the out-of-state sex offenders moving to Colorado would not, under the original version, would not be required to register in Colorado unless their offense would have required registration had it been committed in Colorado. But under the, in the Judiciary Committee report, there was a change to that saying, yes, you do have to register in Colorado, even if your offense would not have required you to register in Colorado had it been committed here. You still have to register in Colorado when you come from out of state if you were required to register out of state for the offense. But you do have a process to petition off the registry in that instance. And that was the main change made in the Judiciary Committee report. There were other less substantive changes, but that was the main change made in the Senate Judiciary Committee report.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Senator Gardner.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, Mr. Chair, without grandstanding or demagoguing this issue, my colleague, I think, misses. I said without grandstanding or demagoguing this issue, I would say that I appreciate the Senator's work on this. This is a very difficult bill to sort of get the policy right, and the Senator is good at doing so, and this committee report reflects some changes in the bill that make it possible for us to support the bill, and so I urge an aye vote on the committee report.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, Senator Kagan.
I move Amendment L007 to the committee report.
Is there any further discussion on the Judiciary Committee report? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of the Judiciary Committee report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee report is adopted. Senator Kagan.
I move Amendment 7 to the committee report, which corrects a spelling error from discontinues to discontinues.
There is an amendment on the desk. Senator Kagan. I'm sorry. Will the clerk please read Amendment L007? Amendment L007, Senate Bill 26 by Senator Kagan. Senator Kagan.
I move again Amendment L007.
Senator Gardner.
Well, at the risk of grandstanding and engaging in demagoguery, it is an outrage that we find the bill gets as far as this, and the good senator from Thornton spotted this typographical error and called the drafter, I think, I would say, to the senator from Arapahoe County. And of course, I was simply confused because I thought that discontinues was some legal term of art, Senator, but apparently it's just a typo, and I urge an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L007? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of Amendment 7. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. To the bill, Senator Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the bill makes some changes to the system in effect with regard to registration of sex offenders. I hasten to add, before saying anything about what the bill does, just to note that it does not remove people from the sex offender registry prior to their current 5, 10, or 20, or lifetime years that they are required to be on the sex offender registry, but it does make some procedural changes that address issues that have been raised by, among others, law enforcement with regard to those that can't appear in person without a substantial hardship. For those where we know where they are and law enforcement knows where they are, it gives the law enforcement the ability to waive the in-person registration requirement and allow them to be registered by law enforcement as long as law enforcement has verified where those folks are. It does permit those offenders who are deemed by a court, after consideration by a court, to be incapacitated and no unreasonable risk to society. Upon such a petition being made, it allows the court to say, yes, you're incapacitated, you are not an unreasonable risk to society, and therefore there is no purpose in continuing your requirement to register. It does allow those who have completed their 5, 10, or 20 years to actually petition off, and with notice to the district attorneys and with notice to the victims, if the court finds no objection and finds that the qualifications have been met, then to strike that person off the register. Those are the 3 changes that are made. These changes are supported by law enforcement and by the District Attorney's Council, and I urge an aye vote.
Is there further discussion? Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, now that the committee report has been adopted and the bill throughout uses the common American spellings of things such as the word discontinues rather than some British spelling, I would ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 26? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 26. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 26 passes. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 156? Senate Bill 156 by Senator Cook and Representative Kennedy concerning the publication of fiscal information by a county. Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 156 and the Committee from State Veterans and Military Affairs.
To the committee report, Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The committee report put back in the expense reports to be published monthly on the website, and it also changed some wording from one and some into the bill to say at least one legal newspaper.
Is there any discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Under current statute, each county is required to publish certain things into the newspaper, a report about its expense and contracts, the salaries of public employees and officials, and the financial statements of each fund kept by the county treasurer. Currently, the expense reports are to be published monthly. The salary reports and financial statements are published twice a year, but as I said, under the amendment, we're putting back the expense report to be monthly. Under current statutes, again, county governments are the only ones that are required to do this. City governments are not required, school boards are not required, local districts, whatever. No one else is required to do it. We had testimony from Jefferson County that they pay $84,000 a year publishing these reports in the newspaper. Weld County it costs them about $14,000. And so this would just remove that requirement that counties have to publish in the paper. And they would provide a link, though, to the local newspapers with those reports.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, this bill comes up usually every year, and every year, you know, in rural Colorado, we don't have the same ability to transmit out like we do in the metro area. So, you know, I would say that a lot of our constituents in rural Colorado, the only way that they have to currently know what's going on in government is the newspapers. And the newspapers in rural Colorado, or in some areas, are the only type of information that can accumulate this. So I would urge people to look outside of the box or the metro area and see how we do it in rural Colorado. But I think that the newspapers actually provide a service that cannot be approached any other way. Not everyone in rural Colorado has computers or the high speed, so but we all have mailboxes, and when that information comes in the mailbox, we know definitely what's going on. So I think what this does is restrict the right for the citizens of the state of Colorado overall to find out what's going on, and I think I will be in opposition to this. Thank you.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill doesn't say they can't do it. They can still publish in the newspapers if they like. If they don't have the ability, they can still do it. Like I said, $84,000 Jefferson County was spending. That could be another patrol deputy. That could be a corrections officer. It could be another road grader. It could be another person for human services. So that money could be better utilized in other departments. But like I said, if they still want to publish it in the newspaper, they certainly can.
Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, colleagues. I wish to register my respectful opposition to Senate Bill 156, and I thought I would be the single voice in the wind, so I appreciate that there's at least one other legislator who has some concerns. Basically, I would say that I know it's about, I think from the county perspective, it's an issue of money, but I would submit that the price of liberty is not free, and that there are people who don't have access to the internet, and the newspapers provide a public service by publishing this information. It's an objective source of information. It's there in the paper. People who don't have internet access can read the newspaper and find out, you know, what government is doing. And to me, this is a valuable tool when we talk about open and transparent government. And for those reasons, I register my respectful opposition to this bill.
Senator Todd. Senator Court, sorry.
I only get to see the back.
The way you can tell the difference, Mr. Chair, is that today I'm sicker than a dog, and Senator Todd as well.
Senator Court.
I should stand back and not cough on the mic and poison everybody else. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say we heard this in committee, and I'm very torn on this bill. On the one hand, small newspapers, as my colleague from the Plains has said, Southern Plains, they're the lifeblood of those communities, small newspapers in those communities. And denying them this minor amount of revenue is consequential. On the other hand, being certain that government is spending its money wisely in every area is also a huge responsibility that we need to face. And so balancing these two is what I want to see this bill achieve. So I'm going to vote for it at this point, but as it moves through the process, I hope that Senator Cook, my colleague from Weld County, will work to see if there's some kind of balancing that he can come up with that makes it a little less frightening to rural communities. So, the senator from Weld County promised me he would be willing to do that. Thank you.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you. My colleague here has indicated it's up to the counties if they wanted to do this or not. But the reality is the counties may very well decide not to do this, but it's not about the county government, it's about the citizens within the county. And that's what the complexity of this is. They have that right to know, and they have no other means to get this information other than their local papers. So, I would strongly ask you to think about this and think about how things are done in remote rural Colorado, and realize that those citizens have that right to know. They have that right to information, and they've become accustomed to the newspapers providing this. And like I say, we all understand the broadband issue in the state, and there are some areas that do not have any other way but that newspaper. So I urge you to vote no on this, and I do believe that it's up to, this is a citizens issue and not a government issue. Thank you.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, hey, colleagues, this is a really weighty bill. Bottom line, we have this little thing called the internet now, which we didn't have years ago. And so my county, Jefferson County, currently, the way the law reads now, must spend $84,000 to provide income apparently to a newspaper, which doesn't really probably reach everybody in Jefferson County, to publish this information. Or, if this bill passes, and I sure hope it does, I will be a solid yes vote, they can save that money. They can get out of the Stone Age and into the modern age and actually put it on the internet, and then they can provide links. To my good colleague from Alamosa, I would say this. If your county believes that it is good governance to provide your local newspaper with income to get that information out because they don't have another way of doing that, this bill does not get in the way of them doing so. They just have to be able to answer to the taxpayers of their community why they're doing that instead of doing something else which could save them money and dollars and also provide convenience and an opportunity for all in the county to be able to see. So urgent aye vote.
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My colleague from Wheat Ridge just pointed out something that concerns me. I hadn't thought about this, but my mother is 90 years old, and she never uses the internet, but she reads papers vociferously. And this would affect my mom and people like her who prefer, and not only prefer, but have only the option of a newspaper and are not online. And I think the good senator from, I hate doing this, Alamosa has a point. The rural communities, many rural communities do not have the opportunity to see this information online. So I would urge a no vote.
Senator Koufalos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This will be my last comment. I just want to reinforce and reiterate what I said earlier, and that this is about government accountability, government transparency. The price of liberty and transparency is not free. I am very sensitive to the needs of folks in rural areas. I am very sensitive to the changing demographic that more and more of us will be 65 and older. And even though we have this thing called the internet, not everyone accesses the internet, and we need to make sure that people have options to hold government accountable and to make sure that things are transparent. And that is why my respectful opposition is a respectful urging of you to vote no.
Senator Martinez-Humenick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I, along with my colleague from Larimer County, do share concerns with regards to our senior community, some members of our disabled community. Some of them have tablets and have access to the internet. A lot of people do not still. However, what I would do is issue a challenge to the counties and a request that if they're only going to publish in a small paper, because I know in my communities, the readership of the small paper that's available compared to the actual population is minimal. And so if that's where they're publishing, people aren't going to know where to even go to get the link. So I would ask all Colorado counties to put their links to their reports on the state website as well.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 156? Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple comments. Rural Colorado, we hear all the time how they don't have money for certain programs. They don't have money for law enforcement. They don't have money for roads. They don't have money for social services. We hear that quite often. Well, this is an opportunity to redirect that money to those critical needs that they have. Or the county can still publish it in the paper. It's not prohibiting them to do it. And then we like to talk about transparency. So why is it just cities, or excuse me, why is it just counties that are forced to do it? Why aren't cities doing it? If we want to be transparent, let's have the cities do it. Let's run a bill requiring every city in this state, every school district, which would take more money from schools, let's require every school district, every special district in this state to do the same thing. So it's not really about transparency because we're not requiring it of every local government. So with that, Mr. Chair, I ask for an aye vote on Senate Bill 156.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 156? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 156. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 156 passes. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 62?
Senate Bill 62 by Senator Moreno and Representative Melton concerning liability limits and snow and ice removal contracts.
Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to lay over Senate Bill 62 until Tuesday, February 27th.
Motion for the body is to lay over Senate Bill 62 until February 27th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 62 will lay over until February 27th. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 43?
Senate Bill 43 by Senator Grantham and Representative Lundin concerning the legal effects of the rejection by the Senate on an individual nominated by the governor for appointment to a state office to have on the subsequent nomination or temporary appointment of the same individual to or holdover of the individual in the same state office.
Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to lay over Senate Bill 43 also till Tuesday, February 27th.
Motion for the body is to lay over Senate Bill 43 until February 27th. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The aye has it, and Senate Bill 43 will lay over until February 27th. Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
Motion for the body is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Committee shall rise and report.
Senate will come back to order. Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee's had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee will lead reports had in consideration the following task bills being the second reading thereof and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 26 is amended. Senate Bill 156 is amended, passed in second read order, gross place on the calendar for their reading and final passage. Senate Bill 125 laid over until 2/23/18, retaining its place on the calendar. Senate Bill 62, Senate Bill 43 laid over until 2/27/18, and retaining their place on the calendar.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
Question before us is adoption of the committee of the whole report. All those, are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 26 is amended. Senate Bill 156 is amended, passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 125 laid over until 2/23 18 and retaining its place on the calendar. Senate Bill 1862 and Senate Bill 43 laid over until 227-18 and retaining its place on the calendar as well. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to lay over consideration of resolution, specifically HCR 1011, until Friday, February 23rd at the sponsor's request.
Question before us is laying over the resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The resolution is laid over. Consideration of House amendments to Senate bills. Mr. Carpenter.
Senate Bill 50 by Senator Smallwood and Representatives Coleman and Catlin concerning including staff of freestanding emergency facilities as part of Colorado's safe haven laws.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate concur with the House amendments to Senate Bill 50.
Motion is to concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 50. Senator Smallwood, please provide a brief explanation on the changes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. This bill needed to be amended. We caught a couple of things after it passed out of the Senate. In short, in redefining the definition, remember this is the safe haven for newborns bill, where we are expanding the locations where parents can, within a very short period of time, drop off newborns. Historically, these were limited to hospital emergency rooms or fire stations. This bill expanded that to include freestanding emergency departments because there have been so many built. We thought more access points would really be helpful to deal with this tragic situation. When the bill left the Senate, it had inadvertently not included freestanding emergency rooms that were owned by hospitals. It's really important that we do include those, so I would ask for a yes vote on this.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. President. The report just came out for babies that were utilized in safe haven over the last year, and there was 5 in the state of Colorado. So I'm very supportive of 18050 for this consideration, and I urge a aye vote on this. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the motion to concur? Seeing none, the motion before the body is for the Senate to concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 50. Are there any no votes on concurrence? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the readoption of Senate Bill 50.
The motion is for the repassage of Senate Bill 50. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 50 is readopted. Co-sponsors. You're already on, sir. Already on. Okay. Consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title of all the appointments on the governor's appointments consent calendar?
Members of the Board of Trustees for Adams State University for terms expiring December 31st, 2021. Donna Lee Griego of Alamosa, Colorado, to serve as representative of Alamosa County as a Democrat appointed. Kathleen J. Rogers of Alamosa, Colorado, to serve as representative of Alamosa County and as unaffiliated reappointed. Randy Wright of Alamosa, Colorado, to serve as a Republican reappointed. Members of the Board of Trustees for University of Northern Colorado for a term expiring December 31st, 2018. Richard L. Monfort of Greeley, Colorado, Republican reappointed. For a term expiring December 31st, 2021. Christine M. Scanlon of Dillon, Colorado, a Democrat reappointed.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move all of the consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar appointments, including members of the Board of Trustees for Adams State University and members of the Board of Trustees for the University of Northern Colorado.
Is there any discussion on any of the appointments on the consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of all the names listed on the consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar. Are there any no votes? No votes on any of the appointments on the consent calendar? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the motion is adopted. Following persons are appointed to the Board of Trustees for Adams State University: Donna Lee Griego, Kathleen J. Rogers, Randy Wright. Following individuals are appointed to the Board of Trustees for the University of Northern Colorado: Richard L. Monfort, Christine M. Scanlon. Signing of bills.
The President has signed Senate Bill 32, 35, and 88. The President has signed House Bill 1075, 1079.
Delivered to the Governor.
To the Governor for signature on Wednesday, February 21st, 2018 at 2:45 p.m. Senate Bill 32, 35, and 88.
Committee reports.
February 12th, 2018, Committee on Education. After consideration of Mayor's Committee records the following: Senate Bill 118 being postponed indefinitely.
Announcements. Senator Martinez-Humanic.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I just wanted to remind everyone that tomorrow, Friday, February 23rd, from 7:30 to 8:45, we will have the second Legislative Caucus on Aging, and it will be in the basement in House Committee Room 107. So if you'd like to come and discuss the gaps and forecast needs for our seniors here in the state and opportunities to help our seniors, which is one of the most fastest growing parts of our population, please come tomorrow.
Senator Corum.
Mr. President, it is an honor to serve with you and to announce that Fort Lewis College will be providing breakfast in front of the old Supreme Court tomorrow morning starting at 7:30. Stop by and see them.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, have a flyer on your desk for the American Council of Engineering Companies of Colorado. They're having a lunch over at Randolph's. I hope you can make it.
Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. You have a West Sloper in front of you, reminding you that there is a Front Range Water Council lunch today at 11:45. Why is someone from the West Slope talking about a Front Range Water Council? Well, that's because I have the headwaters of the Arkansas, which are actually Front Slope River Basin. So Front Range Water Council, 11:45 today. Thanks, everyone.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, we will not have bills to read over later today, so we will adjourn. Mr. President, I move that the Senate adjourn until 9 a.m. Friday, February 23rd.
Motion is for the Senate to adjourn until 9 a.m., February 23rd. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will be adjourned.